بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's been a while since I uploaded anything, but just basically caught up doing studies and focusing more on myself than putting more content out. And that's the advice of many brothers and du'at from the West. I remember specifically Brother Mufti once, he said, he was asked a question about new students of knowledge making videos and giving dawah. He said that's fine, there's no problem in that, but to take in more than what you're putting out, right, to focus more on your studies. So alhamdulillah, that's what I've been doing. It's been almost a year exactly since I put my last video out with Sajid, and alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it possible for me to meet up with the brother Muhammad from Andalus Institute here in Mauritania. So inshallah, today we're going to be talking about something that a lot of people have been requesting for a while in comments and different things, and a lot of people are interested in how somebody has become Muslim. Brother Sajid has advised me to do it. Many people are sending messages and asking when's your conversion video coming out. So alhamdulillah, we feel that the time is right, and linked up with Brother Muhammad to be able to do it. So inshallah, that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yes, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. It's your brother Muhammad here, founder of AndalusInstitute.com. So yeah, I mean, I did tell Abdul Haq, man, you need to share because your story is crazy, as in, good and bad crazy, type of crazy. So I think a lot of people can benefit from the whole thing. And everyone can benefit from different and feel related to it in different little aspects of the story. So yeah, I will be trying to guide and kind of like guide the interview kind of thing. And perhaps, as you talking, if I think about something that might be interesting for you to touch a little bit more in depth about it, then I would just remind you. But yeah, I guess it would be nice if you start telling us about your upbringing. Did you grow up? How was your upbringing? Was even religion involved in your upbringing, etc.?
So
perhaps you can clip it.
Clip it. All right. So basically, alhamdulillah, I'm from New Jersey. I was born in Edison, New Jersey. Come from a small regular family. At the time, obviously, when I was born, I have an older brother. He's 4 years older than me. And my parents were together, married. And my background is that I'm American, but my great-grandparents, they come from Germany, mostly German. On my mom's side, almost 100% German. And on my father's side, mostly Hungarian and Portuguese. So like my great-grandma and my great-grandfather, there would be one was from Hungary and one was from Portugal on my dad's side. With a whole bunch of, mixed. We got a blood test done that says we were mixed quite a bit, but those are the highest percentages. The asl in my family is that we're Catholic, not very religious, as many Catholics might, be able to, or people who are either Catholic now if you're watching, or if you reverted to Islam from Catholicism, that there's not much importance given to the deen. Some of them are more, it varies, but the majority are not very religious, more traditional than anything. So upbringing was that, I did the normal 2 days a week catechism class, going to religious school 2 days a week. I got confirmed, and I was baptized. I had I was baptized in my confirmation, and also I had my I forget what it's called, another ceremony. So just basic traditional thing. Yeah, communion. Yeah, so baptism, communion, and then confirmation. So that basically ended around the time I was like 12 years old, and then there's complete no religious ties in my life after that. So probably around when I was maybe like 6 years old, we moved to Pennsylvania. And so basically all my education that I did in elementary and middle and high school was all in Pennsylvania. So I mean that's basically just a brief background of where I come from. Now,
So that would be all up until what age?
so born in New Jersey, moved to Pennsylvania when I was 6. Ended religious studies by the time I'm 12. And right around that time, actually, the time I'm about 12 years old, or before that, a couple years before that, my parents had got divorced. So when we first moved to Pennsylvania, we were living in like the middle of nowhere. And then my mom, when my parents got divorced, my mom moved closer to the city. So heck of that. No.
So what would be the next stage once you got to Pennsylvania?
So basically, so I said I have an older brother who's 4 years older than me, and as anyone who's from America knows that what Americans do in high school and middle school and so on and so forth, lifestyle is one and the same basically all throughout. Actually, probably worldwide now. Drinking, smoking, partying, this type of things happening. So, me personally, I wasn't free from that. I was exposed to that at a younger age due to my older brother. So, right after my parents got divorced, my brother actually was diagnosed with cancer. So, when my parents became divorced, I became, I think, as I told you before, that I had a lot of free time on my hands. So basically, when my brother got diagnosed with cancer, my mom was busy and spending most of her time with taking care of my brother. So my brother had a form of cancer, bone cancer. For anyone who's familiar with cancer, osteosarcoma, I think it's called. It's a bone cancer. So he had to get surgery and all this stuff and chemotherapy, and it was going on for a couple years. Probably about 5 years, 6 years. He was going through this fighting cancer. So when that happened, I'm around 11, 12 years old, and I basically, between my parents being divorced and my brother being sick with cancer and my dad's remarried with his new wife, I'm just doing whatever I want, So, and ultimately, one thing led to another, and I'm hanging around with the wrong group of people. And, like we said, smoking, drinking. My mom, like I said, I started hanging out in this city because we were selling drugs and doing what, Americans do, unfortunately. And I got involved in all that and basically adopted the wrong group of friends. And as anyone knows, that if someone's living this type of lifestyle, that it's not going to be free of, consequences. For every action, there's a reaction. Right. So, and I was myself, as a result of living that lifestyle, I started getting into trouble. No.
So throughout the whole high school, what is it, 4 years high school?
Yeah.
So after high school, did you go college or what?
So basically, I didn't make it that far before actually getting in trouble. So as I got older, like I said, this all started from my exposure to all this negative activity. Started from such a young age that it just got worse and worse every year that went by. So, but if I started when I was 11, 12, 13, 14, all the way up until, the time I'm 17, is, 17, I'd be almost getting ready to graduate from high school. But, me getting in trouble and hanging around with the wrong group of people, hanging out, selling drugs and doing this type of thing, led to me getting in trouble, which prevented me eventually from being able actually to finish school on time. So I ended up getting in trouble with the law by the time I'm 17, multiple times, and eventually, basically, what happened was I started getting sick of getting in trouble, and that's kind of what, if anyone has any type of religious or believes in God, if they have any religious connection or belief, that if they believe in God or whatever the case may be, that even if they're not religious, that when they do fall into some sort of trouble, that they turn back to God, they make prayers or whatever the case may be. So even though my family wasn't religious, I still believed in God, and I would make prayers when I would get into trouble. So, living this negative lifestyle as a kid, you start to get sick of it. So I started by the time I was 11. By the time I'm 17, and doing the same thing, getting in trouble continuously for 6 years. Just got tired of it.
No.
So that's when I started looking for an alternative lifestyle.
Right.
Right.
So when you was obviously in this type of lifestyle, selling drugs, whatever it might be, like I can't even imagine what is the first thing you think. Obviously, you say you believe in God, but what is the next step that led you to finding anything related to God? Because I mean,
right. So now we got to think about where I come from. It's not necessarily a diverse area. It's mostly like half and half, black and white. African American and white Americans. There's not a big influence of Arabs or Muslims and things like this, especially back then. It's getting more now, but back then it wasn't. So the only exposure to any religion basically was Christianity. But now, after I ponder and I think back after becoming Muslim about how that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually put Muslims in my life step by step. And the first Muslims that I came in contact with was two sisters that I went to high school with. They were from Egypt. And one was more practicing than the other. One used to wear hijab, cover her hair. But either way, they were both two, they both were nice sister girls, in the high school, respectable girls. And I became really close friends with one of them. And another one that, I think I told you the story that I was, one time I was walking down the street and a car had pulled up on me and I got jumped or whatever the case may be, broke my nose. And I went back to my friend's house and she was there the first time I met one of the sisters. And she was the one, Muslim. Karen, you know what I mean? Nice. She was the one that, she didn't even know me and came up and she was the one that helped me when my nose was bleeding or whatever the case may be. So now I look back and inshallah I'm going to mention how they actually end up playing a role of where I am today. So those were the only two Muslims, but even my contact with them, they didn't tell me anything about Islam.
Right.
I just knew they were from Egypt, and I didn't know anything about it. And then I had another friend who was also involved in the same type of lifestyle that I was living. His name was Muhammad. And I met him throughout my course of getting in trouble or whatever the case may be. And I remember one time specifically we were getting some food and he said that he didn't eat pork.
Right.
So I had this connection of, Muslim. He said, I'm Muslim, I don't eat pork. And I remember that till today. Like he's like, yo, I don't eat that. So I'm like, okay, so that stuck with me. And then I had another friend who basically, he had lived in the same lifestyle. He had gotten in trouble and he got incarcerated. When he came home Muslim. And I remember specifically him praying during Ramadan and fasting. And, when he would see other Muslims, he would say, Assalamu alaikum. And we didn't know what he was saying, but, basically, hakada. So I didn't know anything about Islam. And but now I see that before I became Muslim, these Muslims kept getting put in my life. Hakada. Until finally, like I said, when I guess like they say, you hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
You're fed up. You got to change something that's just not working out. And whatever it is that you're going through, if you're going through some sort of hardship, you got to try to find an alternative.
Right.
So one of the things that one time I had got my hands on a Quran or a translation of the Quran, and I just started to read it, and I remember I didn't know anything about Islam. I didn't know anything about Salah. I didn't know anything about how Muslims pray or anything, and I still didn't know what Muslims believe in. And I just I got stuck reading Surah Al-Fatiha. I used to read it every day for like a week. And then I just left it off after that. But I knew if anyone reads Surah Al-Fatiha, the opening chapter of the Quran, it's a prayer. And if you've been exposed to any type of religion before, that it resembles something that it's asking for guidance. And that's what we need, whether anyone who's religious believes in God or not. We all need guidance from someone or somewhere. So that had an effect on me. I left it alone for some time. And then I met some more Muslims. I had met a Muslim brother, and he gave me a book about Islam, but I didn't understand anything about it. It just basically it was just confusing to me, and I gave it back to him. I think it was like a translated version of Kitab al-Tawheed or something like that. So finally, I got, this is still me living this lifestyle and getting in trouble or whatever the case may be. I met some guys from Philadelphia, and somehow we became friends. Mm-hmm. And it's funny that the thing that we had in common was that me being from Pennsylvania, I'm about an hour and 45 minutes away from Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. But my friend who was Muslim, he was real influenced by Philadelphia, people from Philadelphia, and he became Muslim, and he's living the same lifestyle as me. So he had brought back to our area like a Philadelphia influence. Right. And it was different because everybody where I live is influenced by New York and New Jersey. So when he came home Muslim. He came home, listening to Philadelphia rappers, dressing like someone from Philadelphia, talking different. Mm. So he was like someone that we looked up to. Right. From a negative aspect, obviously, but in a dunya aspect. But, that rubbed off on me. So when I had met these kids from Philadelphia, the thing that we had in common was that I kind of was like them, like I knew all the raps that they knew from the rappers from Philadelphia, underground rappers and stuff. I had them memorized, and we used to go back and forth talking about these things, and we used to talk about what we were doing, selling drugs or whatever the case may be. And but at the end of the day, they were Muslims, just caught in the dunya, and so sometimes they would talk about Islam between each other, and I basically wouldn't be able to say anything, and over time, we just, they started, shay'an for shay'an, step by step, introducing Islam to me. No. And so, one day, so mind you, at this point, I got put in a juvenile facility, and this is all while I'm in a juvenile facility for people who get in trouble as underage. I was 17 at the time, so this is 11 years ago. I was in a juvenile facility, and my roommate was someone from Philly who was Muslim, and I had my stepmother sent me a Bible, and this particular Bible was like a study Bible with pictures of like all the prophets in it, and like it shows them like herding sheep, and just just whatever. And my friend was like making fun of me, like, "Yo, what's that book you reading?" I'm like, "Listen, it's the Bible, man. Chill." Like, he's like, "No, like who's all the in them pictures? Like who all them people?" I'm like, "Yo, they're the prophets." And he's like, "How do you know that's what they look like? That was way back when. Like nobody knows what they look like. That's just batil. Like that's just lies and just making stuff up." And I'm like, "Yeah, all right." So then that basically opened this initial door to actually start inviting me to Islam for the first time. So I'm like, "Well, tell me." He's like, "Well, we believe in all the same prophets." So I was like taken aback because I thought that being a stupid white American, we don't know anything. I think majority of Americans don't know what Muslims actually believe. So I just was generalizing, thinking that like anyone from the Middle East is like an Indian, that they worship cows or something like that. It would made that even more so because that same girl that I knew from Egypt, one time we all went out to eat, like a group of friends, to like a fancy restaurant, and I ordered for her like beef or something. She didn't eat it. I didn't know because it was not halal. She didn't eat it because it wasn't halal. Right. But I thought she didn't eat it because they worship cows. No. So I'm like, I'm like jahl murakkab. I think I know, but I really don't. And so I'm like, man. He's like, yeah, we believe in all the prophets. And I'm like, wow, subhanAllah. So I was like, he's like, yeah, we even believe in Jesus. We believe he's a prophet. We don't believe he's God. So he started telling me why. Like, okay, Jesus, alayhi salam, may peace be upon him, would pray. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's in the Bible. So how's he praying and he's God? That just doesn't add up. So and he's breaking all these things down like, he was a man. He walked on earth. Like, how can you dare to say that Allah is going to walk on earth like a man? He's way above that. Like he's beyond anything that resembles the creation. So I was like, subhanAllah. So I started thinking about these things. And after that, he's like, so I'm like, well, what about this Quran? And like, he's like, well, we believe in the Bible too. I'm like, you guys believe in the Bible? I'm like, He's like, no, seriously. He's like, the Bible, we believe in it. We just believe that it's been, altered and changed, So I'm like, okay, this is starting to make sense because now I already know that the Christians, and this is the crazy thing, if anyone who's Christian is watching this, just think about this, that the Christians themselves, Christian scholars, they admit that the Bible has been changed.
Yeah.
And anyone could look it up. If you just search for a Bible, there's all these different types of Bibles, and where's the original Bible?
No.
So the Muslim, so the brother tells me, he says, the Quran. So I asked him about the Quran, and what's the Quran? He said it's the seal of all the books. It's the last of them, and there's nothing coming after it. And the book that's in Arabic is one. If you get a Muslim from Africa, and you get a Muslim from America and here from China, all of them, they deal with the same Quran. The only difference is in translation, but we have our original copy.
No.
We all have the same Quran, and it's been the same way. Not changed, not even a cross of a T or a dot, not even a dot of the I or a cross of a T. Mm-hmm. Nothing has been changed for 1,400 years since it's been revealed. So I said, SubhanAllah, it's authentic then.
No.
And then at the end, he says, our religion is based off of worship and Allah, the oneness of worship and Allah. Meaning, we don't associate any partners in His worship. So when we make a dua or we make a prayer, we pray directly to Allah.
No.
We don't need a middleman and so on and so forth.
No.
And he gave me, I think I told you this, the example that he's like, he said, where you come from, people sell drugs and all this type of thing. And if you could get to the main source and connect directly without anyone going between you, you're going to get the most benefit.
Right.
So he said, if you want to get straight to Allah, why would you need a middleman? You can go directly to Allah and get the most benefit.
Right.
And that's the right way. So that, and I said, okay, well, I want to learn about Islam.
Mm-hmm.
So probably for about a month straight, I started just studying Islam daily. I got as much material as possible, and I was taught by them the aspects of Tawheed, the oneness of worship of Allah. They taught me the meanings of the Salah. They taught me the Fatiha and the meanings of the Fatiha, all before I became Muslim. So my Islam was real knowledge based from the get-go, and I decided to study for a whole month. So like I said, I was in this juvenile facility. And unfortunately, they had this ideology that they weren't good enough to give me my shahada. So there was an imam that would come in and visit us and talk to us and speak to us. And basically, he was a graduate from Azhar, from Egypt or something like that. And one day he came in about a month later after me studying Islam for all this time, and I took my shahada right there. Alhamdulillah.
In prison.
Yeah. Well, in a juvenile facility.
Right.
And that was it. And then alhamdulillah, it just kept going. And my first week of being Muslim, I learned the Arabic alphabet. My roommate, may Allah reward him, taught me the Arabic alphabet immediately. And then when we would go recite it on this imam. So that's basically it.
SubhanAllah. I'm thinking right now, sometimes they think of themselves that they're not good enough, but maybe just because through that alphabet and everything you learn after from Arabic and whatever funun, he might be getting paid in the akhirah for that,
SubhanAllah. So about 2 years ago, when I first came to Mauritania, I start remembering the imam. So I actually called the facility from Mauritania. And I called him and I was like, can I speak to the chaplain? And they have to cross you. The chaplain, if you call him, you can get to speak to him directly.
No.
And I spoke to him in fluent Arabic.
No.
And I was like, I'm such and such. You probably don't remember me from 10 years ago. But here I am studying Islam, and I know fluent Arabic. He's like, MashaAllah. He's like, you're speaking like an Arab.
No.
You're.
So he was the graduate from Azhar.
From Azhar.
Yeah.
Allah.
SubhanAllah.
So alhamdulillah, may Allah reward all of them.
So now you have accepted Islam in prison. or in the juvenile. So how long did you stay before getting out of it?
So I ended up staying there for a couple more months,
Mm-hmm.
maybe about another year actually.
Playing.
And I got out, and it was a process. It was a complete transition from how I was raised, because I'm raised with no religious values, taqriban, basically, because I'm from a Catholic background. I don't, there's no importance given to Islam.
No.
And I'm raised and also I'm trying to get rid of a lifestyle that is just full of desires. Anybody who comes from the streets or trying to be from the streets or has been influenced by, as they say, hip hop culture or rap culture, or it's just nothing but desire. So you're drinking, you're smoking, you're committing zina waliyadu billah, and I have to at this age, at a young age, I'm 19 years old at this now, and I'm out there in the free world, and I'm trying to not catch up with everybody else, and I'm thinking I have to make up for lost time, and I gotta do what I can while I'm young. I'm still gotta live it up, as they say, and it was just a process. And so what would happen is that I would end up practicing for a couple months and then leave it for another couple months, and I went through that for about 2.5 years. So my first 2.5 years of being Muslim, I was like basically deciding, well, do I really want to be Muslim or not? Because I had this ideology also, which a lot of people have this thing that they say, I'm not good enough, or I'm not ready, or it's either all or nothing, and that's completely 100% wrong.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I'm not praying right now, so I'm not Muslim, so I'm just going to do whatever I want and not even claim that I'm Muslim, and I'm just going to live life. And some people do that, and that's wrong. And alhamdulillah, eventually I got introduced to some older brothers that started to teach me what Islam really was. Because if we think about it, where I was at, the Muslims that I was exposed to were not very good examples. And, I met some older brothers. One brother, Abdul Basir, from Philadelphia, he used to teach me Aqidah and Fiqh Salah and all these things, and used to be very harsh on me about who I would hang around with. And even at one point, we stopped talking. Like, I would avoid him because he'd be like, yo, you can't hang out with him. Like, he's a gang member. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't. I'm like, but he's, I grew up with him or whatever he's going to be. He's like, yeah, but you're a Muslim, you can't hang out with him. So, like, I would avoid him because I would be tired again. You know how kids are. Yeah. Like, you don't want to be around, you don't want to be getting told what to do all the time. And then I had another brother, his name is Najib from Newark, New Jersey, he was like the one. When I'm acting crazy, he would tell me, you can't be listening to music, you can't be gambling, you can't be, you can't be fighting, and you can't do this, you can't do that, you gotta get married, you can't, So putting this thing in my head, like, and the same thing, I kind of went through the same thing with him. And my relationship with him before I actually took heed was like maybe after a year of knowing him, I finally was like really, really appreciative. And then he introduced me to some Moroccan brothers, actually if anyone is from Newark, New Jersey, from Becca Islamic Clothing. Brother Ibrahim and Shahid, they have in East Orange, New Jersey, they have Becca Islamic Clothing. They're from Morocco, very good practicing family, and they basically took me in. So they really were the first ones to really, go to them. We used to go to the masjid together, and I would sit with them, and they're my real first friends. He's my age basically, right. And that's Muslim practicing my age. I can relate to him. Doesn't have any prior dunya thing, but we were like still we can get along. He's grew up in America and in Morocco. So, like that. And then, bil munasaba, those same sisters that I went to high school with, they found out that I had became Muslim. And I got in contact with them again. And they introduced me to their family members from New Jersey as well, that were all practicing, involved in the Dawah scene or whatever the case may be.
So you're talking about the one that when you got jumped, she was...
Yeah. Her family, she had like her cousins and aunties and uncles, they have a big family. And they had like an extra apartment And where I'm from, there's not a lot of Muslims, as I said.
No.
So I would go down every Friday. I would take off work on Fridays, and I would stay down there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and I would sleep and live in their apartment and visit all the masajid and everything like this. And they basically took me in like a son, you know, may Allah reward them. So from me going to high school with them, knowing them in the like dunya, to them actually helping me, you know, with my become more practicing.
Right.
Until, you know, eventually when I first went to Egypt, actually their family members in Egypt used to help me out and took me to the airport and used to give me a place to stay and feed me. And one of their cousins actually became one of my best friends that I talked to today. You know, he's practicing, mashallah. So alhamdulillah.
So alhamdulillah, that shows that if there's anyone out there that you might know that accepts Islam, what really helped you, it was kind of like the support that you start having from.
Yeah, that was a major thing, because if you're just Muslim by yourself, and that's the idea of the ummah, you know, and that's the idea of going to the masajid and all these things, because we need each other, haqiqatan. No.
Like, so after all of this, throughout all of this process, what was the turning point, the thing that made you say, man, I'm out, I'm going to study, then brought you to Sudan, Egypt, Mauritania, all of these places?
So, as I mentioned before, that my conversion was like knowledge-based decision. You know, the brothers, as anyone knows who's from Philly, there's a lot of brothers that have studied in Yemen and stuff like this. So they used to always talk about studying in Yemen and Medina, of course. So there's a brother that wrote a book from New Jersey who graduated from Medina, very, very well known, Shadid Muhammad. I had got my hands on his book, and he had wrote 2 books that were very, very famous actually amongst the community. One was about Tawheed, and everybody was studying. You know, it was crazy because literally his book was like the book on Tawheed. I think it was like elementary principles about Tawheed or something like that. And then he wrote another book that was called He Came to Perfect Moral Character. And in the beginning of that book, he spoke about himself, who he is and where he came from. So he said he's from Newark, New Jersey, or, you know, that area. And that he was incarcerated for like 5 or 10 years, became Muslim, went to, you know, when he came out, he went to Medina University, graduated from, I believe, the Kulliyat al-Hadith, and became an imam, you know, student of knowledge. So that was a huge, major inspiration, you know, because I can relate to him. I come from a similar background. I'm from New Jersey.
Right.
You know, he wanted to go, he went overseas, he did it. So if he could do it, then inshallah I could do it too. So I used to always make dua, crazy dua that I can, you know, learn Arabic, whatever the case may be. So with that being said, as I'm in America, before I'm ready to go really think about making any of these moves, I learned some Arabic, not speaking, just basically I finished like Medina Book 1, you know, and some other basic things, and so I could write and read and, you know, basic things. There were some other brothers that helped me. And finally, I took this step, and there was another brother who was also from my support. I got in contact with a brother who had a similar background from me. He was, you know, he was an older white brother from New York City, and he's very, very well known. Brothers, if someone's watching it, his name's Yassine. Rahimahullah, he actually passed away. Very, very old white brother with a big beard, and he was really strict on me too. I remember I called him, and I was like, you know, Sheikh, you know, I'm trying to get my life together. I'm like, but you know, I can't. This is in the beginning. So he's like, you know, I'm like, I can't, you know, go take off for work for Jumu'ah. He's like, oh yeah, you can. You know, he's like, oh yeah, what you're gonna do is you're gonna tell because I was working for my father. He's like, you're gonna tell your father, you're gonna come to work early and stay late so you can go to Jumu'ah. I'm like, well, listen, okay, but I can't pray at work, you know. People, you know, they looking at me funny. He's like, yo, you used to think you were a gangster. You was doing all this, running around, acting like a fool. And you're telling me you're going to be scared of some construction workers at work? Like, you better get your salah in. So he's like, I'm like, well, all right, Sheikh, but there's this girl, you know, I like this girl. He's like, well, you got to get married. He's like, you got to let her go. She's either got to become Muslim or you got to get done. Khalas. So I ended up linking up with him, and he took me out. Eventually, this was after this, taban. After some time, he took me to my first conference in Philadelphia. And like I said, at this time, I only know about studying in Yemen, and Yemen's going through all these problems, it's dangerous. And in Saudi Arabia, you know, you got to apply for Medina and wait around for it to come through. So when I'm at this conference, I meet brothers from all over the place. I meet brothers from Sudan, and amongst somehow we ended up like staying at the same house. I became real friends, and I'm still in contact with them to the day. These brothers from Sudan that live in Canada, they were there, and they told me about studying in Sudan. They're the first ones that put the idea in my head. May Allah reward them. And also they're talking about going to Egypt. Now Sudan sounds crazy and scary. You know, if you think about Sudan, nobody knows, especially in America, like Sudan has this like bad aura around it. You say Sudan, it's just like, you just think crazy. Like, you think like jungle or something, you know, it just sounds like nuts, like Sudan. So I'm like, okay, if I can go to Egypt, let me try to go to Egypt first. And
it sounds more touristic. Right?
Yeah, like Sudan. Like, so I go to Egypt for the first time, and I stayed there for 3 months. And that was my first step by going to Egypt and starting to study Arabic there.
And then from Egypt, how long did you stay there?
I stayed in Egypt for 3 months. And as anyone is familiar, that the political situation in Egypt is kind of unstable, and a lot of times they kick students of knowledge out for no reason. If you don't have a good enough reason to make the cops feel like you're worthy of staying there, they stop you and ask you for your ID. You get swept up and taken away and sent back to your country. So unfortunately, that happened to me. Before me, it happened to another brother who's going to the same school as me, like 3 weeks before me, and then it happened to me, and I spent 3 days in custody for absolutely no reason, and then sent back to my country. So I stayed in America after that for about 6 months. During that 6 months, I was working, saving up money. I got my CELTA English teaching certificate that goes through Cambridge University. That was in New York City. And then I applied for the university in Sudan, the International University of Africa. A brother that I studied with in Egypt, he took my paperwork there and got me an acceptance letter. I applied through the embassy and got a visa to go to Sudan with my acceptance letter. And if anybody's watched the How to Study in Sudan video, you basically, that's the only way you really could do it, is you have to know someone in Sudan to be able to get a visa to go there. Actually, I think I might actually seen something recently that they're making it easier for people to go there. Allahu Alam. Anyway, so I stayed in Sudan for almost a year, like 11 and a half months. I finished the Arabic program there, alhamdulillah. I studied with some mashayikh from Yemen, studied fiqh, Shafi, and other sciences as well. And then my wife at the time, she was pregnant with my daughter, and then the doctors in Sudan, they found that my wife actually had a problem. There was a problem with the baby, that was going to be born with a condition called gastroschisis. If anyone doesn't know what gastroschisis is, basically the child is born with all its organs outside of its body. So they have to take all that stuff and put it in basically like a bag and slowly push it back in and sew it up. So we said, okay, well, if that's the case, then we're not going to have that surgery here. We're going to have it in America. So I went back to America. While I'm in America, actually, I got accepted to Medina University, which was crazy. It's like a dream come true, but I'm married, I have a kid, or whatever the case may be. So I tried that out. That didn't work because I couldn't get my wife there. And also because basically after studying traditionally in Sudan and Egypt, I wasn't really into the, university studies. And as anyone knows that, anyone who studies it traditional way versus university style is, there's a big difference in how much you learn, So I decided that wasn't for me, so I went to Mauritania. And I stayed in Mauritania for about 8 months. And then I got a sponsorship to go back to Sudan and got accepted into a program to do a 1-year diploma in Sharia. And my wife, she didn't like Mauritania. She liked Sudan a lot, and she had a better program for her to study Arabic there as well for women. They have women opportunities for sisters. I think Sudan might have the most opportunities besides Egypt for sisters. So we decided we're going to go back to Sudan for this school year. Alhamdulillah, I stayed there. I graduated. I got a 1-year diploma in Sharia from the university. And after that, I decided that, so then Sudan went through a revolution. So right after, I was there for the entire 6-month revolution. It was crazy. They were shooting out 10 minutes from my house. So I decided, I said, you know what, this is unstable. As soon as my exams, actually, I was thinking not to go back. I left between semesters, and I said, I'm not going to go back. I don't care about the program. It's not safe.
No.
And I decided to go back, took my exam. I stayed until the semester was over, took my exams, and then I left. I was deciding where to go, and I had applied to a program in Turkey, actually. And it was for memorizing the Quran. So I said, okay, let me go try it out. You know, I have to leave Sudan anyway because of this problem that's going on there. Let me go check out this program in Turkey, and I didn't like it. Checked out a couple other schools in Turkey. I didn't like it, and basically the Turkey makes it's difficult to live there because of the language barrier. There is a lot of Islamic schools there, and so on and so forth, but nothing really to my liking. And I said, I did find a school that was decent. And I said, okay, since I'm already here, I'm going to try to get residency. But the residency required some paperwork that I didn't have, and it was really expensive, and I didn't want to keep trying and dealing with it. So we said, you know what, we know Mauritania is the best place that we've been out of all these places we've been. Between Saudi, Egypt, Sudan, and Turkey, that Mauritania was the best. So I came back to Mauritania, alhamdulillah, and that's what I'm doing now.
Okay, alhamdulillah.
So this is over. So anyone who doesn't, this is a lot of things going on. This is over a course of about 5 years.
طيب.
So I started.
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask.
Yeah.
طيب, alhamdulillah. So throughout this whole process, since I would say since high school up until now, what would you say that has been the most significant thing that you've learned, whether it's from life or just from your experience?
Like studied or just in general?
Just in general, like obviously there's a lot that you learn traveling.
Yeah, I mean,
struggling.
I mean, a bit. There's difference of opinion about whether one should travel or not. A lot of people say there's programs in one's home country.
Yeah.
And to some extent, that's right, but you lose that opportunity of experience.
Yeah.
So it's really funny that I seen a clip one time, like a motivational clip about like motivational sayings from different major figures in the dunya. And one thing that stuck with me, Jay-Z, he said, people read they read a lot of books, but I lived a lot of life.
No.
You know what I mean? So like, no matter how much someone sits around and they read, and if they're stuck just reading, and they don't experience life.
Yeah.
The amount of stuff that I've done, but now I'm 28 years old versus, some people who are 50, I've seen like a million times of what they've experienced. So, yeah, so I mean, getting overseas and dealing with the people, you have to have patience. You learn patience, you learn how to deal with different cultures, things you're not used to. You're out of your comfort zone.
Right.
And then on top of that, you're dealing with, you have to learn from mashayikh, so if you go in and train that, and that's the way of the scholars of the past. From the beginning of Islam is to travel to go get your ilm, and it was definitely beneficial. No.
Like, alhamdulillah, I think there's a lot to benefit from the different things you have explained, mainly from how anyone really, and to not underestimate anyone's lifestyle, to give them dawah. And I think as well that the best dawah is the image dawah, type of like, without actually forcing anyone or telling them, but actually showing them. I don't eat pork, like Muhammad said, or I'm still this crazy dude. I have reputation and whatnot. I'm in prison, but I still, believe in who is, who has more, who's more worthy of respect. And I still, that was, because I think that, being around these people, you feel kind of like they have this social status basically, and you need to respect them. But when you see them respect someone higher than them, it gives that. So what I was trying to say with this is that you should never underestimate anyone's lifestyle, man. It could be anyone, literally any person. Mainly in the West, you might see some crazy person, you say this is the last person is going to become a Muslim, and he end up becoming a better Muslim than you. Right. So inshallah, alhamdulillah, may Allah bless everyone who has been through the process and have helped with the little input. throughout your process, all up until getting here. And yeah, I think there is a lot that we could have, or you could have went in depth, but I think these are the main points that people will benefit from. And yeah, to not make it long, I guess we can end up here. If you want to end up perhaps with last few words.
Yeah, I mean, just basically, if anyone could benefit anything, there's a couple of things that I think is beneficial from everything that we spoke about. Number one is if you're Muslim, or if you're thinking about becoming Muslim, you don't need to be a super practicing Muslim right off the bat. It's a step-by-step process, and it took me over 2.5 years, and through that 2.5 year period, or 3 years or whatever it was, after being Muslim for 10 years now, that even during that time period, I basically left Islam. Right. Because I was so in depth with my desires and what I want, and I'm a kid, what I mean. So it's a transition, and it's a step-by-step, gradual, progress, process, and you progress as time goes by, and that's one thing. So don't think that you need to be stop and drop everything, and everything else is built off that. You can be a complete sinner. You can be an alcoholic, but if when you're sober, if you can pray, what I mean. There's nothing saying that. There was Sahaba that there was one of the Sahaba that he drank alcohol, and some other people from the Sahaba, they wanted to curse him. The Rasulullah ﷺ said, no, don't curse him, for verily he loves Allah and His Messenger. So that goes to show, like not saying that these things are okay. Like if you're watching this and you're caught up in something, it's not okay. But at the same time, don't think that you're not good enough to worship Allah, because you need Allah more than and we all need Allah. So that's one. Number two is, like Muhammad, you pointed out a very good point about the fact that what really helped me was the support. And I seen that someone had commented. They comment and they say things like, "Oh, I'm a white convert and no one helped me," or there's a lack of help for converts. That's true, but also the brothers that do convert and the sisters that do convert, they need to make that initiative. How many people convert and they play around? So if you show you're serious and you really want this, and if you put yourself out there and go to the masjid and get to know people, and so it's a two-way street. So the people who are already Muslim, you need to take care. You need to take give great importance to the converts, and the converts, they need to strive to show that they're actually serious about this, because this is a major thing, and then also probably lastly is just the importance of seeking knowledge. I mean, I've been doing overseas seeking knowledge. I started in America, obviously, doing this for the past 4.5, almost 5 years, and I think that's what's the most important thing that's going to keep people Muslim. You need to know your religion. You need to know who's Allah. You need to know how to worship Allah. You need to study your aqidah, your belief. You need to study fiqh. A lot of people in the West, they don't give importance to studying fiqh. You need to know fiqh is how you live as a Muslim. Aqidah is your belief, and fiqh is how you live every day in and out as a Muslim. How you interact as a Muslim. So, studying and seeking knowledge is major, and in going overseas to do so is a big step, but it's good. And if you can't do it, then sign up with an online teacher or online program, or go to your local masjid and find somewhere. Or if you can't move outside of America, move somewhere in America where there are, or in the UK or wherever you are, where there's classes taking place, and just try to be around the Muslims as much as possible, because that's what's going to help you, get better and help you stay practicing. And ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to, give us all tawfiq, and to grant us thabat and firmness upon His deen, and that's basically it.
Inshallah. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed it. And yeah, leave us I guess comments in the comments section. Let us know what you guys think, if you guys have any questions.
One last thing, don't forget to share the video to anyone who you think might benefit. If you know some non-Muslims that might show some sort of interest into Islam, share it with them. Share it with anyone who you think can benefit. Because wallahi, I don't feel comfortable making videos if it wasn't for brothers like Muhammad, may Allah reward him, or Sajid, who pushed me to do these videos, or the brother who his name's Tawfiq. He was the one who edited all my videos previously, he reached out to me and asked me to make them. So I don't feel comfortable making videos. So if I'm making them, we got to get as much as a reward as possible. So share the video, subscribe to the Brother Muhammad's channel. Check out his institute, Andalus Institute for Arabic. You can find him on Instagram, and Facebook, and on YouTube.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of students of knowledge out there who need help and support. May Allah reward everybody who supported me with my GoFundMe or send me money or anything along this path. And if you see students of knowledge that need help, keep helping. And like we said, we need to be an ummah and support each other. So basically that's it. Wallahu a'lam wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.